All right, so welcome everyone. Today we're having a session to discuss how to stay well and look after yourself while you're having very busy life, a lot of things happening for you in your work life, in your personal life. How do you still take some time to prioritize health and to make sure that you're showing up in your best state across all of those areas of your life, hopefully. And I'm just so excited to introduce our guest today, Cameron, or as we call him, Mac, or as he's Mac, Roriston, a wonderful human being and also very inspiring. So Mac was a former, Mac is a former Royal Marine Commando and also a physique competitor. He finished Ironman, aside, in addition to a lot of other crazy competitions he's been through. And he now founded Theseus Body and Mind, which is a coaching practice for building resilience and peak performance. Welcome.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Kat. Hello, everybody. I hope we're doing amazing today. How are we all? Give me a big thumbs up if everyone's feeling good. Yeah, lovely. Great stuff. Great stuff. Okay, yeah, so that was a pretty good, in a nutshell, one-liner of who I am. Just to give you a little bit more background, just so that you've got some sort of meat on the bones of why I do what I do and what my kind of philosophy to health and wellness is. I'm a former Royal Marine. I was working in fitness before I joined the Royal Marines. I went back into the fitness industry when I left. Ended up working for a few very wealthy individuals, but just personal training. Eventually, I wanted to be able to provide a more holistic service, okay, that wasn't just focused on exercise, but where I could include my knowledge of nutrition, my knowledge of the importance of mindset, okay, that I learned in the Marines, and deliver that into a more holistic service. And to be honest, I wasn't really sure what that was going to look like until I started it. So a couple of years down the line, where I've ended up is typically providing that service to executives in high pressure roles, generally a little bit stressed out, okay, struggling to find time for health and fitness, want enough energy left at the end of the day after performing at their very best at work, to still look after their health and spend time on themselves and their family. Right, so that's pretty much who I serve. So before I go into any more of this, I'm really interested to find out what you guys were interested in attending this webinar in the first place. So we can just open the room to any ideas. Why are you guys here? What are you kind of hoping to find out today?
I don't mind going first.
Okay, great.
Well, for me, I think it's quite straightforward to find a good rhythm in the day when I'm not too crazy busy at work. You wake up, you do a workout, you have a good meal, and you bring that through the day, basically. But I get it all goes kind of out the window when it's very busy at work, and I just can only focus on that. And then there goes my exercise, there goes my healthy diet. So it's finding the discipline to, even if you're super busy at work, to stick to a good routine that is also achievable. For me, yeah, it's quite tough to determine that.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. Yeah. And yeah, that's really typical of the barriers that I help people overcome when they come to work with me. Okay. That's pretty kind of textbook answer. It's the juggling act of having a busy job, wanting to take care of your health. Sometimes it's not just motivation. It's, it's time, time and motivation generally are the barriers that people have when they come to me. Yeah. So anybody else want to throw some ideas in there?
Yeah, just to say, like, for me, like many other people, I think physical health and exercise and wellness in general is very closely connected with mindset and with your motivation and how you feel about what you're doing. And so I'm always interested to hear new takes on how to optimize that really. And I guess your time in the Marines and other elements, interesting to hear. I'm interested to hear what insights you've got.
Okay, great. Awesome. All right, some really good answers coming in, guys. Anybody want to add theirs? Don't have to. There's no pressure. But
I'll go, if that's okay. I just have a question on productivity. Like I've worked at 2 startups and it's constantly like, it's really high paced, juggling a lot of different tasks. And I personally get really overwhelmed and actually quite demotivated when I see a massive to-do list. And if I feel like getting through that list is going to mean no time for myself, especially if it means I have to stay longer at work, it means I can't have a proper lunch break. So yeah, my question is more around productivity as well as, you know, keeping motivated even though you've got like an enormous task ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's another good one. And again, like that's another thing that I do cover usually with all of my clients is mastering or trying to master this art of stress-free productivity. You know, how do you make space in the day that's already back to back with everything else? Yeah, and still feel like you can actually get some, you know, take care of your health at the end of it. So I'm going to try and stay on the main theme of building a sustainable routine. So we'll talk about that a little bit. I'll try to cover that in a little bit more detail if we've still got some time at the end. But that's a really good point, and it does tie in with the point that was just raised actually with regards to the mindset connection and stuff like that. So I'll try to cover that point as well. But that was awesome. Okay, guys, so I don't want to spend too long on that because otherwise we'll run out of time for the really good bits. But those were some really great points. So the main objective of this talk, okay, I want it to be more of a discussion than a presentation. So I'll try to keep it a little bit interactive. I'll try to get as many ideas from you as I can before I go into any detail on any one area. But the main objective really is to give you practical information that you could take away today to help make whatever wellness regime you have in place or want to get in place sustainable over time. Okay, and that's because the key, as I'm sure many of you will already know, is consistency. It's not what you do in any given week. It's about making it consistent over time. And health should always be a lifestyle choice. You know, it should never be a 30-day transformation or something that you just want to kind of like get done and then stand on the podium at the end and win fitness and move on to the rest of your life. You know, it should always be a lifestyle choice. So it's got to be sustainable. It should be something that you can adopt and look to keep in your life forever. And so that's the main objective. Yeah, perfect. So sort of quick caveat, some of what I say today might be quite common sense, but it's not really about what you understand. It's what you execute. So again, going back to that objective, I might say some things that seem fairly obvious, but the main objective is going to be to give you some way of practically putting it into action. So just want to get some more ideas why health specifically is important to you. Okay, everybody's motivated to keep in shape, to be healthy, but why specifically is it important to you guys? We touched on some things like mindset there, but any more ideas?
For me, it's just general daily comfort and functioning, you know, because, you know, I want my mind to function. I want I did a lot of damage in my body growing up, and I just want to reverse that damage and and just have a long functional life. Because also I've had people around me suffer a lot, you know, die early, and so yeah, it's what we do now that we're going to be, you reap what you sow. In 40 years time, it's what I do today if I live that long. Maybe 20, 30 years.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So I was kind of getting two things there, sort of functioning now, your ability to function now, but also a big investment for the future, Peter, right? That's kind of what you're saying there? Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Yeah.
I also, you know, I work with a lot of people who are looking to get into a new line of work or start their own business, change careers, while they may still have a job that they're currently doing. So what happens is that, you know, they tend to feel a bit stretched. And I also find it for themselves, right? So when I'm doing a lot in my business, if I'm not feeling healthy, if not feeling well, the way I show up for the calls, like the quality of that just drops straight away. Like it's so visible, like it's almost counterproductive, like not invest into health for everything that I do. And for, you know, my clients, like in terms of how do they interview, how do they show up when they're looking for, you know, their new clients, staying resilient and consistent with making applications and things like that. So I feel like everything is based on the foundation of feeling well in the body.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love what you said there about counterproductive. You know, it's actually counterproductive not to stay healthy. And this is, you know, again, we're going to go into a bit more depth about this, and it ties in with the mention of productivity. You know, this is what happens is that generally the journey that evolves with my clients starts off with this little bit of reluctance to try and make time for these habits, that ends in not even thinking about not making time for those habits because they've proven to be so beneficial for all the other things that they want to achieve. Yeah, that stress-free productivity, that feeling energized, being able to focus, they all tie in. So that was a really amazing set of answers. What I really just wanted to kind of confirm was what everybody's sort of awareness is of, you know, how something like physical health and exercise ties in with our ability to perform mentally and all those kinds of things. Everybody knows what the obvious benefits of including exercise in your life are with regards to maintaining a healthy weight, being more resilient to lifestyle-related diseases. But what people aren't always absolutely sure about, although people are aware there's a connection between body and mind, what people aren't always sure about is the actual physiological changes that occur that benefit our ability to think. Okay, which are things like, in its most simplest term, doing exercise improves blood flow to the brain. Okay, so all the nutrients that you need to think is being sent there in larger quantities when you've done exercise, which is why there have been huge studies done within schools where they actually put exercise in at the start of the day as a mandatory activity. And then what they've done in some schools is they've gone as far as to schedule in the subjects that the students are struggling with the most in that period immediately following the exercise, because it's been shown in the data that they've taken that the kids are doing best in the lesson that immediately follows the physical activity. Okay, so getting nutrients up there, actually promoting neurogenesis. Okay, so by exercising regularly, we're actually creating more neurons, which is resulting in greater brain volume. And they believe that this is one of the reasons that regular exercisers seem to have this protective buffer against dementia. Okay, not 100%, but that's one of the reasons they think. And an increase in brain chemicals known as neurotrophins, okay, which help us to actually learn and increase our memory. Okay, so actually not just producing new neurons, but consolidating their role, linking them to tasks that we do, and basically making us smarter. You know, that's literally what is happening when we're exercising regularly. People like to think that exercise is good for you. I actually like to think of it in the reverse. Okay, so a quote I really like from a Roman poet is, the good is mostly in the absence of the bad. And that's how I see exercise. It's not necessarily good for you to exercise. It's actually just really bad for you not to do it, because we've evolved over thousands of years, right? Hundreds of thousands of years, to move around. And when we don't do it, it's not so much that when we do it, good things happen. It's more that when we don't do it, we literally start to deteriorate. So if we didn't have enough reasons already to exercise, there's a few more that you may or may not have been aware of. Okay, but it seems like everybody here has got a pretty solid awareness that what we do physically affects our cognition, yeah, affects our mental performance, which is really important for people who are obviously career driven, very ambitious, want to be able to get the most out of what we're doing on a daily basis. All right, does anybody have any questions or ideas that they want to share about anything that I've just talked about, or anything that wasn't making sense there? No? Cool. All right, perfect. Okay, so I'm going to just gloss over the framework that underpins the way I coach, my coaching method. Okay, if you want to make notes of this, you can. I haven't done a presentation or anything like that, so if you guys want to take down any notes, that's going to be on you. But it's basically a 4-step framework. It's really simple and it's deliberately slightly vague, which will make sense as I go on. Okay, step 1 is vision. Okay, step 2 is standards. Step 3 is habits. And then step 4 is review. And this framework is designed so that you can take it and implement it towards whatever personal development goals you might have. It's applicable to everything. All right, and I'm going to, as we go, just sort of go into each step of that as we go. There's just a couple of kind of key concepts to go over, and I hope that we agree. Or maybe I can sort of throw this one out to you guys as well. Let's hear some ideas from you on what you think is happening when we're struggling to find fulfillment. It's a bit of a big question, but for you, what are the barriers to being fulfilled in life? Someone want to throw one out there? You can take a second to think about it.
Yeah, I'll go for it. Why not? I guess for me, one of the things that I know I find fulfilling, and perhaps if I'm not feeling fulfilled, is something I can look at, is wanting to achieve something and see the impact of something that you have done. Great.
Wanting to achieve something and seeing the impact of it. That is absolutely perfect. So the way I think of it is that a lack of fulfillment in relation to any part of your life is when a mismatch occurs between your desired outcomes and your reality. So as you put it, wanting to achieve something and having the impact of that, when you're not achieving the thing that's going to give you that impact, okay, that's when this lack of fulfillment occurs. That's when we have that absence of fulfillment. So when there's a mismatch between outcomes, desired outcomes and your reality, that's when we tend to feel a little bit unhappy. And the outcomes of our life are determined by the standards of the behavior, right, that we participate in. So I relate a lot of stuff back to my time in the military. For me, one of the absolute, fundamental, valuable lessons that I took away from the military was the importance of standards. Knowing your standards, being clear about what they are, and being clear about how they affect the outcomes in your life. Okay, and it becomes very, very clear when you're in an organization like the Royal Marines, where really terrible things happen when you don't adhere to the standards that have been set for you, and you're forced to adhere to those standards. It becomes very painfully clear the positive impact that happens on your life. And this is one bit of feedback that I get a lot from my peers who've left the Marines and gone on to work in corporate organizations particularly. They find it quite easy to outshine other people in the organization simply by always being on time, always being very presentable, and the work ethic, just always striving to achieve a high standard with everything. All right, that's something that I get, that I hear back from people a lot. Okay, so hopefully we can all agree that desired outcomes need to be in line with our reality in order to achieve fulfillment, and our outcomes are determined by standards, and that's our systems that achieve outcomes. Okay, this is really crucial, right? Because what generally happens in a lot of health and wellness journeys is people are very goal focused, and it's obviously crucial to have goals. You must be clear about what your goals are and why those goals are set. But beyond that, it's important to focus as much energy as possible on the system, because this is where something becomes sustainable. You know, it's the system that will take care of the outcomes, not the goals. Focusing on the goals is great and you need to do it. But focusing energy on the systems that take care of those outcomes is where we really need to be putting most of our energy, okay? And sustainability is determined by the relationship that we have with that system. And this is exactly what we're gonna sort of go into in a bit more depth now, okay? Is everybody happy with what I've said so far?
Yeah, I just have a question about what do you mean by systems?
So system, yeah, great question. So what I mean by system is, let's say, well, give me one of your sort of health and wellness goals at the moment.
Ooh, exercising more regularly.
Okay, so exercising more regularly, what's the outcome that you want to achieve from that? What's the positive impact to you from that?
Feeling more fit in general.
Okay, so just feeling fitter, feeling healthier. Yeah, okay, that's fine. So if that's your goal, then the system is the exercise. The system is simply the method by which you're going to achieve that outcome. Okay, so, and this is what I mean is, you can get very focused about what that goal might be. Okay, but ultimately, focusing on the goal itself is not enough. Okay, if you've got a system that's flawed or that you don't have a positive relationship with, e.g., you're trying to beast yourself through doing exercise that you're actually not particularly interested in every day, and only focusing on the goals as your source of motivation, the chance of that becoming sustainable over time is very minimal. Okay, so once we've got our goals, that's perfect. We need our goals. We need to be clear about what they are. We need to be even clearer about what the actual positive impact is to our lives when we achieve those goals. But beyond that, we need to pay attention to the system itself, because if you just focus on the system and you've got a positive relationship with that system, in your case, just doing the exercise, the goals take care of themselves. Okay, and so that's what we're going to go into a bit more depth about now. Okay, so I'm just going to talk through those 4 parts of that framework, and again, well, not again, but the first 2 are going to be fairly short, and then we're going to really go into a bit more detail on the habits section. Okay, but the vision, we've just touched on it there, is about being crystal clear about what it is you want to achieve, but why. What is the actual positive outcome, the positive impact to your life from your goals? Because quite often people give me the exact answer that you just gave me then, which is, I want to do more exercise. And that's fine, but what's motivating you about that? You know, what's getting you excited about that? How is that actually going to help you? So it's good to try to peel back as many layers. You want to kind of ask the question of why, almost like an annoying child, again and again, until you kind of can't go any further with it. Why do I want to exercise more? Oh, because I want to feel fitter. Okay, why? What difference is that going to make to your life? Maybe you've got kids, you want to be able to play with them more. You know, now that's something that you've got an emotional attachment with. Okay, which is very, very different from just saying, I want to exercise more and having that as your goal. Is everybody happy with that? Okay.
I have a question.
Great. Yeah, sure.
Are we focusing sports or exercise only, or can I like look at this issue in a more like a wider scope?
Absolutely, you can. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, yeah. Great. So in terms of the why and the positive impact, can it be also something that is positive to others? Like if I'm thinking about goals, and of my why is quite often attached to something that, you know, that I can, like, how can I serve others? So that would be, of course, it gives me great the joy to deliver something good for others. But I was wondering if that can be the, or is it not strong enough, do you think?
It's got to be emotionally resonant with you, you know? So if that's the thing that drives you, okay, and like I say, it's what's the positive impact to your life? And it's a great point, because contribution to others is one of the most rewarding things you can do. And it adds another layer of accountability. Okay, so it's a great one, yeah, to try and hinge your outcomes on, on serving someone else is great, as long as it's aligned with your deep driver, yeah, because if it's an external motivator, as in your partner just wants you to get in shape, okay, then that's not that's not really falling into the same category, right? It's got to be intrinsic motivation, okay? So it's got to be aligned with you, with your core values, with your core drivers. But absolutely, if that is the thing that's connecting with you emotionally, then that should be part of your goal. Yeah, for sure, absolutely. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think it did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Give some food for thought. Thank you.
Yeah, cool. But it's a really good question, and I think definitely. So where do we get to? So being very sure about what the specific positive impact is to you. The second step in the framework is looking at standards. Okay, so we already talked about this. Before we go into the habits that I would build with clients to achieve their goals, we need to look at which standards are already letting you down, all right? And then it will start to become a bit easier to map out the journey between where you are now and what you want to achieve, okay? So in the case of wanting to exercise more, wanting to feel fitter, okay, what's the standard that you got now? Are you exercising once a week? Are you doing 10 minutes a day? You know, what does that look like? And then what we want to try to do is make fairly incremental raises of that bar, okay? Because a big mistake that people often say is that in the early stage of the journey, when they're super highly motivated to do loads of good stuff, they go, all right, I'm going to train every day from now, or I'm going to go from doing 10 minutes a day to an hour a day. And what do we think happens when we try to do that? Does that work if we go from 10 minutes a day to an hour a day? People struggling to fit it in around their lifestyle. Yeah, people feeling really sore by the end of week one. Okay, it's lending itself to an unsustainable long-term change. All right, so we look at the standards. Who's familiar with the Pareto principle? Yeah, okay. Some people not. So the Pareto principle states that 80% of the results come from 20% of the causes. All right, so this is another reason why I try to highlight the key standards, because if you ask somebody, or generally if I ask somebody when they come to me, what could you improve? There'll be lots of things. There'll be loads of stuff. You can write a whole list, add it to the huge work to-do list that you have already. Now you've got a huge to-do list of lifestyle changes that you could make that would improve your lifestyle as well. But the truth is that there's probably only a couple of key areas of your lifestyle that you could change that would give you the most benefit that you're looking for, right? We don't need to think about all of the kind of 1%, as I would call them, okay, at the beginning of that journey. So a professional athlete, like a cyclist, would look at everything. They'd look at their training regime, their nutrition, their sleep, their mindfulness, what they're eating, what times they're eating it, micronutrient deficiencies specifically that maybe they can supplement with. And we start to go into the 1%, even down to the bike, things like, believe it or not, it makes a difference to a professional cyclist. If the gear ratios on your bike mean that the chain is vertical in the most likely gear that you're going to be riding in to improve the aerodynamicness of the bike, okay? But that's obviously a 1%, and we don't really need to be thinking about anything like that in the early stage of the journey. So we highlight the key standards, okay? And then we go from there. Once we've done that, we look at building habits around those standards. Okay, so once we get to this bit, the key takeaway that I want everybody to come away from this with is the positive relationship with your habits. Okay. So what habits have we already got to improve our health and wellness at the moment? Let's have some ideas. Anybody got some in place already?
What do you mean?
Running. Any examples? Running, meditation, yoga. What are the habits that we've already got in place to increase our healthy living?
Running and cycling, and use the gym and swim.
Okay, great.
Cold water swimming.
Great.
I use the Sam Harris meditation app, which is quite good, and the Headspace also is a good one.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And then I think a lot of the diet is just kind of common sense, really. I don't get too obsessed with like superfoods and things. I like eating blueberries and avocados and things. I don't have to make an effort to put it on my breakfast in a way, and that I sort of generally have a balanced diet. So that's
yeah, okay.
Some of the things.
Awesome. Yeah, great. Good stuff. And how many of those things do you really enjoy?
Pretty much all of them. I'm trying to think of the ones that I don't. I really enjoy the most surprising ones, really, like the cold water swimming. I really enjoy that now. That was so hard to start with, but now it's becoming a habit. And also I have friends who do it as well. So there's a kind of a social side to it as well, in a way. So that's been the real surprise. But things like running, I've always run. So that's become an ingrained habit. And the only interruption to things like that is sports injuries. I had a tendon injury, which sometimes recurs, which is really frustrating. But other than that, as a habit, those things are pretty good. So yeah, I think that's why they're easy to keep as habits, because they're enjoyable, and it becomes ingrained, I think.
Absolutely. I think I pretty much could have let you deliver this talk because if you can answer that question the way you have, then you are 90% of the way there. What we want to try to do when we're establishing the habits for supporting these standards, okay, we want to try and mitigate willpower. Right, this is something I hear all the time from people. Is like, I don't have the willpower. Oh, I wish I was as disciplined as you. People always say that to me, but I don't do anything that I don't enjoy. So it doesn't take that much discipline to train for an Ironman if I love to run, cycle, and swim. Right, I'm pretty lazy when it comes to stuff I don't want to do. It's not rocket science, but amazingly, people quite often will single out the habits that they think are conducive to their goals, irrespective of the relationship they already have with those, and then try to build ways of increasing motivation to do those. Okay, what we want to do is try and tap into the motivation that's already there. Build your healthy lifestyle habits around the things that you just like to do. And ultimately, there will be days that you still don't feel like doing it. Ultimately, there will still be maybe parts of the regime that you're not completely in love with, but that you know are just really good for you. Okay, but if the bulk of that system is based around the stuff that you just like, all right, we've got a lot less challenges to worry about than if you're trying to engage in activities that you think of as a chore or that you just don't look forward to, okay? Is that all making sense to everybody? Yeah. Can anybody relate to that? Has anyone got anything that they want to say about maybe challenges they've had in the past that relate to anything that we talked about? Or does anybody try to force? Yeah, go on.
Yeah. I mean, I would describe myself over the course of the past year as a committed runner, but not someone who remotely liked it. Normally, I'd like to go to the gym and swim as my preferences. Did running as something to keep me busy, and I have to say I was just trying to take as much brain power as possible out of it was the only thing that really helped me. Like having an alarm set saying run now, like full exclamation marks afterwards. And yeah, that was the only thing that was really getting me through it, because if I left it to myself, I just would not go.
Right. Okay, great. So that's interesting. So you're starting to talk about something that I want to go into as well, which is, you know, if you are sure that you want to be participating in something that's going to get you your outcomes, but that you're not in love with yet, that there are other ways of mitigating some of the barriers to getting that. So what's your relationship with running like now, after a year of managing to do it in spite of not really sort of enjoying it? What's the result of that?
I wouldn't stretch to saying that I like it yet.
Okay.
I'm okay with it. Now I'm able to swim and the gyms are back open. Those are my preferences, and those are kind of what I've stuck with. And I've got a longer term project that I want to do, a 4K open water swim. So
Nice.
that's taken up more of my time.
Great. That's great. Yeah, brilliant. So, I mean, it sounds like that's very much a circumstantial change that's resulted from the global situation, right? Is that's the case? You were going to the gym, but you...
Yeah, that'd be fair.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and so, you know, when that happens, then obviously we do have to look at other tactics to try and mitigate those barriers. Okay, so let's carry on down this route. So, is everybody happy that having a positive relationship with the system, with those habits, is massively beneficial towards making that sustainable choice? Would anybody disagree with that at all? Feel free.
We just decided to have a vegan week last week because we just got too much into eating meat a lot of the days a week, and it wasn't making us feel great. And one of my lovely clients, who's not here today, sent us a book to cook delicious roasted veggie meals. And so we basically tried one recipe every day, and it's so delicious. So now that we're done with that week, you know, we want to continue doing a vegan day, like every other day, to have a vegan day, because like really fell back in love with roasted veggies and lots of fruit.
Amazing.
I think it's nothing to disagree with.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, absolutely. And there you go. You're just establishing that positive relationship. Okay, so I'm conscious.
Sorry, Cameron, can I add something?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I just want to thank you because I had this discipline. So I'm used to do meditation and yoga, sometimes fitness or exercise bike. But during the lockdown, I had this discipline for a month or 2 months, and then I stopped, something came out, and I felt very guilty. And so now it's like on and off. So I just want to thank you because I think I just realized now, maybe I haven't found the thing that I really like. Maybe I don't like these things anymore. So thank you for that, because I think I need to readjust my routine, my day-to-day routine.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah, I'm great. I mean, I'm glad you got something to take away there, and that's a really great point. You know, it's a very it can be a very downward spiral from trying to engage in habits that you're just not interested in. You know, you beat yourself up about not doing it. You let yourself down on the promises that you make to yourself, which damages your own self-efficacy beliefs, your own self-esteem that you're capable of doing this. You know, all this negativity that's sort of catalyzed by this one kind of early mistake, which is trying to force yourself to do something that you just don't want to do, right? Whereas, again, going back to you know, the more positive answers that we had earlier about just only engaging in sports and disciplines that you really love, most of the battle won at that point, not having to sort of try to self-motivate to do those things. So yeah, great, really great to hear that stuff. So what I would like to hear from you guys now is some more examples of the barriers that are stopping you now from achieving the health and fitness related goals that you have. Okay, what are the things that are stopping you from getting that done?
I think temptation to do other things
Okay.
that are maybe not good for you. Like, oh, you know, it's like, and like finding excuses, it's almost like an abusive relationship with yourself, you know. It's like, oh, I've worked really hard today, let's just sit on the couch with a glass of wine instead because I deserve it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, that's a great one. We'll go into that in a little bit more. Have we got any others? Other barriers?
I really relate to that. Sometimes I feel like, oh, let's just be nice to myself and not do my, you know, little amount of exercise that I committed to anyway. So.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think for me it's the same.
Yeah.
Kelly and Catherine, but it could be when I have some challenging time as well. So yeah, and I could stop like doing exercise or etc. So yeah, that's another point.
Okay, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah,
interesting.
Actually, yeah, when times get hard, that's when you just stop caring and just let go.
Yeah.
But then if you let go for too long, then it's really hard to get back into it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Okay. Any more?
Sorry, I'm just going to add in there. I just think it's also like, maybe it's a bad like thought process, but I always say I don't have discipline. So that's my excuse not to see something through. I'm like, well, I'm not a very disciplined person anyway. But I just think that's a bad narrative and that needs to change.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, and you know, again, it's a funny one. I don't want to. I'm running the risk now. The more ideas I get back from people, the more different directions I want to go off in. But I'll try to keep myself focused. But it's a really great point. So discipline, you know, discipline literally means to practice. You know, so if you're doing it, you're disciplined. You know, if you're not, you're not. But it's not something that you're born with, or that you just do or don't have. You know, it just comes from literally doing it. You know, you become disciplined when you can build these habits, and this is why it's so important to build a positive relationship with it. You know, once it's becoming a habit. You know, discipline and willpower start to go out the window. When you start to do something regularly and you start to identify with it, it starts to become the thing that you do. You're no longer having to rely on discipline and willpower to get you through. Yeah, it's just part of your day.
And also, James, for me, hit the nail on the head when he said just to remove brain power, he just puts 4 exclamation marks. That's what works for me. If I start talking myself out of going for a swim, whatever, I just, okay, less thinking, we're doing now.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is what we're trying to mitigate. Okay, in order to make things sustainable, in order to build that positive relationship and turn habits into concrete habits over time, we're trying to mitigate the use of willpower and as much thinking about the wrong things as possible. As soon as you start to think about it, then we start to give ourselves excuses. We start to give ourselves the opportunity to talk ourselves out of it. Okay. So yeah, the temptation to do other things. And this is a really important one. And yeah, again, so James mentioned what I want to talk about a little bit when he talked about having the alarm set with, you know, the thing that says go for a run in the calendar. When we're trying to make the decision about whether to action one of these habits or not, whether we are aware of it, we're doing a form of visualization. And what tends to happen when we talk ourselves out of doing something is that we visualized the positives of the thing that we would like to do more and the negatives about the healthy habits. So as an example, okay, you wake up in the morning, you're still sleepy, you want to go for a run. The first thing you think about is the joy of laying in bed a little bit longer, okay? The comfort of staying in bed, okay? The second thing you think about, which you compare it to, right, is the effort that it's going to take to get out of bed, put your trainers on, put your running kit on, and get out of the door, okay?
And these visualizations happen unconsciously. Yeah, we're visualizing one, we're visualizing the other, and the emotional part of our brain is going, yeah, don't do that, just stay in bed. That feels way nicer in my mind. So in reality, it's going to be, it's going to be much better, right? So what we can do is we can take conscious ownership of that visualization process. So at the point at which you're making the decision whether you're going to get out of bed and go for a run, and you catch yourself visualizing staying in bed, the effort of putting on the trainers, we can take control of that visualization, and we can consciously visualize the positive outcome of that. All right. So a big part of building this positive relationship is reprogramming the thought process. As somebody said thought process earlier, can't remember who it was, but that is exactly what we want to try to do, is retrain that thought process, so that when we think about exercise, whatever it is that we've decided to do, it doesn't necessarily have to be anything intense. It can be walking, it can be what we call non-exercise activity. You know, your chosen exercise could be gardening or whatever. Whatever it is, when we think about that, we want to positively associate with that impacts that we know we're going to get from doing that, or something else about it that's positive. So for me, it's a really good example. Okay, I live in the city. I live in the middle of Berlin, but I love to run in the countryside. I'm not a massive fan of running through city streets. I have to visualize past the first 10 minutes of my run to the point where I'm already in the park or the green place that I'm going to get to. Okay, because if I focus on that first 10 minutes, I will talk myself out of it. All right, so that's my conscious remedy. That's my conscious visualization. It's looking past the effort of putting the trainers on, looking past the effort of getting out of bed, even looking past that first 10 minutes and looking ahead at the way I'm going to feel when I get to that green space. And I'm super proud of myself that I managed to get there. All right, I'm actually enjoying my run at this point, because I like to be in those places. I like to run there. Okay, and even further past that, I can visualize the outcome, the long-term outcome of being in better shape, feeling fitter, feeling healthy, all that other stuff that we talked about earlier. Okay, so is that making sense? What I'm talking about now? Yeah. Okay. Okay. So we're going to run out of time to talk about everything that I would love to talk about.
Sorry, I just want to make a quick remark around that.
Okay.
Happens often in the sessions. So, you know the rap, guys. So if you need to jump off at 8 o'clock on the dot, thank you so much for joining. It's really lovely to have you here. By the way, if you're interested in speaking more to Mac or asking some more questions, or also find out how he works with clients, he's got this wonderful website you can check out called Theseus Body and Mind. There you are. So you can check this out. And if you can and willing to stay, we'll probably run over by about 10 minutes, and we'll just keep it open for, while you have like more questions that you want to ask. So up to you. Anyway, if you need to jump off, feel free to.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, sorry guys, timekeeping, not my strongest suit when it comes to this topic, because there's just so much stuff that I want to talk about, and unfortunately an hour is just not enough to get it all in. But I suppose we can sort of wrap up that last point of focus with motivation. The two biggest barriers that people give me when they come to work with me is time and motivation, and they're very much intrinsically linked. We will make time for the things that we're very strongly motivated to do. Okay, so before we broach the barrier of time, let's get motivation cracked first. All right, build that positive relationship with that process. Build habits that you know you're going to enjoy as much as you possibly can, and focus on building that positive association between the things that you like about it, the positive impact that's going to that you're going to achieve from doing that. Okay. And like I say, just reprogramming that thought process. Nothing you include to improve your health and wellness should be seen as a chore. You know, everything that you do should be seen as an act of kindness. You know, have some flexibility in your regime where if you miss a workout, you don't beat yourself up about it. Priorities change all the time. Some weeks your priority will be family, some weeks your priority will be business, and other weeks you'll have a little bit of extra time spare to really focus on health and wellness. It's consistency over time. So yeah, key takeaway, like I said at the beginning, is that I want everybody to think positive relationship with the process. If you can get that cracked, everything else doesn't necessarily fall into place, but certainly becomes a lot easier. Okay, once you are mitigating the huge emphasis of self-motivation and willpower and discipline, these words that we used before, then you can broach the topic of time. And I do get it. It is super hard to try to make time for these habits during those weeks, during those days where you're back to back. All right, so there's a few things that we can talk about to try and get around this barrier of time. The first one I want to mention is your commitment to the process. Okay, the biggest mistake that I personally see when it comes to time, managing this into time for busy people, is that the view of these habits are shoulds and not musts. And there's a level of commitment that you have to get past with this before you will make the time. Okay. How can I ask this question? So, okay, who relies on a calendar, okay, to know what's going on in their life each day? Put your hand up in the air. Yeah, okay. What goes in that calendar? Let's just hear some examples.
Everything.
Everything, all right?
Yeah, everything.
Everything that you must do, yeah? Everything that you must do goes in the calendar. In other words, commitment goes in the calendar. All of my training sessions are in my calendar. Doesn't necessarily mean that I'll do them all. There's still a degree of flexibility, as there is with everything else. You know, if something else comes up, or, you know, whatever, you know, life does just get in the way sometimes, then it's fine. But once you've made these shoulds, I should exercise, I should do more yoga, I should do more mindfulness, once you've turned them into musts, okay, then you can really commit to it. And that is the turning point in the journeys of the people that I work with, is that these things they turn from shoulds into musts. They end up being things that people just would not dream of doing. You know, I've got clients who are super busy. You know, I've got people at VP level in Citibank. I've got senior heads of department for Amazon, right? As an example, the lady that I'm working with, who's a global head of a department in Amazon, she does 20 minutes of meditation every single day, and she is always trying to find 2 days a week where she can eke it out to 30, because it's just proven so beneficial to her. And what's happened is it's just become an integral part of her day. It's not a habit that she may or may not do. It's just the part of her day that would just, you know, her day would not exist in its entirety without. So that's a little kind of hack for you. Okay, when it becomes a must and it goes in the calendar, then you're committed. Great thing about calendars as well, you can put all the details in. You can write out what it is. You can have your plan. And this is another barrier that we're getting rid of when we do this, which is taking the thinking out of it. Okay, again, another mistake that people make is planning to do some exercise but not knowing what it's going to be. And then your time comes around, maybe it's 6 p.m, you've just got home from work, we've just finished work, you're already tired, you know you need to be doing some exercise, but the last thing you want to do is think about what that is. Okay, try to have a plan of what it looks like. Yeah, I'm going for a run. I'm going to run 5K and I'm going to go the same route that I always do, the loop around my block. Or I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a home workout, and I'm going to do that specific workout from that YouTube channel that I've been really looking forward to doing it. That's the one I'm going to do. You know, again, the plan can always be flexible. Things come up, things get in the way. Okay, but we're just removing another one of those barriers of having to think about it. There's an interesting study done on learning to play the guitar. They had two groups of people. One group of people kept the guitar out of the case, hung up on the wall, and the other group of people kept it inside the case. And the group that had the guitar out of the case went much further into actually learning to play the guitar than the group that was going to take them 30 seconds to take the guitar out of the case and play it. Okay, when we talk about barriers, we're literally talking about that amount of effort that if you take away might be the difference between whether you will actually do it or not. Things like having your alarm set with run written on it. Just that additional affirmation of what it is you're going to do and that you've planned to do it. Having the gym kit out ready to go, having the trainers out ready to go by the door, and again, having a plan. Okay. Any questions about any of that? Any ideas that anybody wants to add there? All right, great.
Sorry, did you?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to say, like, what you were saying earlier about making the unconscious visualization conscious is actually probably one of the biggest things, and systems generally is the biggest things that I'm taking away from this. Actually, that's huge.
Yeah, it is, because you're visualizing whether you like it or not. You know, you are visualizing whether you want to stay in bed or whether you want to go to the pub with your friends or whatever it is. You know, whether you just want to put your feet up on the sofa. You are visualizing that when you're making that decision, and it's that emotional visualization that's winning over. Okay, so this is why it's important to try and have a strong emotional connection with the habits that you want to put in place. It's not good enough to say, I just want to exercise more. There's no emotional connection with that. The emotional connection that you have with going to meet your friends for a drink, which is obviously fun, it is gonna outpower the visualization of just wanting to do a workout every time. So you have to be really clear about the positive impact. You have to make that association with those positives. Okay, any other barriers that anybody can think of that they might have thought of while we've been sort of talking about this, which are proving to be challenging for you at the moment that you might want to discuss? Maybe we can use the last few minutes to maybe talk through some specific ones for people.
Just a couple of comments on just to wrap up the running thing. One thing that I found really helpful was the tactics idea. If you put your running kit out and you realize that it really is only the first 2 minutes that is difficult. It's literally, as you said, getting out of bed, putting your running kit on and making a move for the door. And the 45-minute run that comes afterwards, or 20 minutes or an hour and a half or whatever it is actually quite easy in comparison to that. It's that first 2 minutes.
Absolutely.
And I think if you think of it as a vote for yourself as being a runner every time you do it, it makes it easier the next time you do it. Or even if you just think, if I do it this time, it's going to be easier next time, then that's a really useful tactic to help you just do it that extra time. And I think that's a really good one. I did think of something that I find difficult and I don't enjoy actually while you were talking. That's stretching. I find the stretching, as I've got older, I've not necessarily, I'm sure I've lost strength and speed and things to an extent, but the thing that I've really noticed is flexibility and stretching. And I find nothing is really, I've not found the magic bullet for fixing that. I always find that hard. And I've tried, or one thing that I think I will try is try listening to podcasts or YouTube things or something while I'm stretching maybe, or some kind of additional distraction to make the stretching easier. But that's something I find hard. And I think that makes injury more likely, which is another thing I'm mindful of at the back of my head. I kind of, with a lot of exercise, I'm sure in the Marines, it was all about pushing forward and personal bests and being very sort of competitive and things. But I kind of, my anxiety is about injury and not being flexible and overdoing it. So
yeah, no, definitely. I mean, and that's great. So, you know, you've got, you know, that's the kind of crux in your regime. Yeah. So you've got a positive relationship with almost all of it. And then there's just that one thing. And that was what I was saying earlier, is that you probably still have some part of the system that you have to, you know, try and get around. So knowing that, it's even more important that at least most of it you've got that positive relationship with, and then now you only have that small part to try and sort of get your head around. And it could be it just could be like a simple trick, like you say. And, you know, action breeds energy, you know, and that's another thing, is people are often waiting for the motivation to begin, but you often generate the motivation through doing it. So, you know, we've got to try and not to rely too much on motivation wherever possible. And that's why it sort of becomes easier as you go. Once the habits get built, then the motivation comes. You know, I'm always more motivated to do my next running event when I've just finished a race and it's gone really well, or whatever. So yeah, interesting that you mentioned that. Bear Grylls has a little strategy that he was using to get himself training on days that he wasn't really feeling motivated, which was to just make a deal with himself that he'd do the first 3 minutes. You know, he'd start for 3 minutes, and if he still felt like he wanted to stop after 3 minutes, then he could. That was fine. And you know, he's saying he never stopped. Once he'd been going for 3 minutes, he never stopped. Once he was in there, and then he was going.
Such a great point, especially, you know, like as a woman, I noticed that, like, I go through energy level cycles, like through the month. You know, there'll be some weeks when I feel super motivated and energized, and I feel I can do a lot more for my wellness, and other weeks where I just feel like, oh, just a glass of wine would be lovely for today. Thank you very much. The one thing that actually, so Mac also coached me on my wellness and fitness. And actually one thing that really helped me, especially on our last cycle of working together, was to, just like you said, just allow myself to only do a minute some days. You know, some days I feel like I'm on the downturn in my energy, getting on the yoga mats and just doing a few little things. I usually end up doing more than a minute, but it really helps me to feel, oh, I can stay consistent, whether I feel I actually have more to give to this area of my life or less. And that kind of made me feel a lot more in integrity and helped me to come back to doing more exercise once I feel more energized.
Yeah, that's it. You know, I'm just gonna wrap up on a couple of points that really tie in with that, Kat, and they both tie in with each other, which is, you know, you're your own best friend on this journey. You know, you've got to be your greatest ally on this journey, okay? And that comes down to self-communication that we talked about a little bit. Somebody mentioned sort of beating themselves up for not being disciplined and stuff like that. You know, self-communication, you got to big yourself up. You know, try not to complain about any part of it. You know, try to be lenient when it hasn't worked out, but hard enough on yourself that you know, be encouraging, but not too hard on yourself. And yeah, when it comes to time, mitigating this time barrier, you know, try to scale everything to the time that you have and the energy that you have. You know, so if you really do only have 10 minutes most days, find the 10 minutes of the day that you do have, that you've got the energy to do it and the inclination to do it, and just use that 10 minutes. It's much better to get something in there, even if it's just 10 minutes, than nothing at all. And what you will find is that habit builds gradually. You know, if you can get into a habit of 10 minutes a day, gradually it'll build. You'll start to find more time. You know, it'll become that thing that you identify with. It will become part of your character instead of just something that you should do that will get lost in the day because it wasn't planned on when you would do it, or you came up with the excuse that, you know, if it's only 10 minutes, what's the point, or whatever. You know, don't talk yourself out of these opportunities that you do have. If you are absolutely slammed for time, you know, just get something done. Breed that motivation by taking that action. Yeah.
That's it. You know, just be your own best friend. There's a million different ways you can come up with, you know, with trying to bridge that gap between unmotivated and motivated. Lots of different tricks, you know, some of them we've talked about. But just whatever it is for you, whatever individualized trick you can come up with that builds a strong, positive, emotional connection between you and the habits that are going to take care of those goals. That's the trick. That's the ticket.
Thank you so much, Meg. It's so helpful. It was, to me personally, it's been like such a great journey. And also, you know, because you're always a little bit apprehensive, Royal Marine, he's gonna like really make it really hard for me. But actually, you know, the ideas and the mindsets that you share are so helpful to make this more of a lifestyle versus just like a one-off body challenge. So thank you so much for coming here and sharing your thoughts and ideas as well. And thank you everyone who's joined and asked your amazing questions and shares. If you want to say something before we leave, what is the one thing that you're taking away that you're going to try or implement in your routine? Or if you want to drop it in the chat box before you leave, that would be lovely. And as I said, if you want to chat to Meg a little bit more, it's Theseus.
We'll send a link.
Bodyandmind.com.
On the group.
Yeah, and
if
you
you're
can also ask me. Please contact me.
Yeah, guys, and honestly, feel free to reach out to me. Hopefully you've got the impression that I can talk about this forever, and I love to chat about it, and I'm not worried about anybody sending me, you know, a DM on LinkedIn or an email or whatever. I'm more than happy to answer questions and stuff like this. I love it.
Sarah's off for one. Thanks so much, Sarah, for coming by.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so what was everybody, I hope everyone's got something useful out of this. Has anybody got any kind of key takeaways that they feel like they can implement from here, or any ideas?
I think by starting for a couple of minutes or 10 minutes, like something way more feasible for exercise. And indeed, like making that your like part of you, that will be, I think, for me, very, very helpful.
Brilliant. Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any others?
For me, it was the do something you like. I always seem to force myself to do things I don't like.
Yeah.
So just that's my biggest takeaway. Thank you. That's actually really, really nice. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's my caveat at the start was I'm going to say some things that seem really obvious once you said them, and that is probably the most obvious one. You know, if you can do something you like, then you're mitigating a whole bunch of challenges. But a lot of people do the same thing, you know, just trying to beast themselves through stuff that they're not really enjoying just for the sake of getting it done. So you're not alone, but I'm glad that's helpful.
Yeah, so for me, it was a couple of things. The conscious visualization was something I've not come across before. I thought that was a really nice idea, and something that was I'll look forward to trying to implement myself. And I guess on a more broader note, just kind of like the idea about friction, really, the idea of, you know, make it as easy for yourself as you possibly can, and equally works just as well on the flip side. If you need to put the cake on a higher shelf that you need a chair to get to, that's equally fine too.
Yeah. I've got clients with time lockable phone cases. So putting a barrier in the way of something rather than the opposite. But, you know, again, sort of, I guess the barrier is the distraction, to getting more stuff done. So mitigating that barrier that way. But yeah, whatever works for you is, you know, it's just unlimited opportunities for stuff like this, and does end up being quite individualized. So yeah, great. Glad you got something useful, James. Thank you for the feedback.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Meg. I see you in the session.
Yeah, great. Thanks everyone for coming.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Meg.
Bye.
Everyone.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.